Now, I've lost count of how many times that I've been out in public and there have been children, feral children, causing a scene. The most recent case is hundreds of school kids storming a shopping centre in Milton Keynes. Now, a member of the public was afraid that they were running from a shooting or an attack or something like that. They were screaming. Well, then it turned out, shops locked their doors in panic and actually they were just trying to loot the place. One bystander said it was really scary, as there were maybe 200 kids just running with no regard for anyone around them. They were swearing at security, were doing an amazing job, but with so many kids, they had no hope of getting it under control. So with young people thinking that they can just rule the roost, and by the way, that was one of arguably the more mild-mannered situations there, as bad as that was. They seem to be stabbing each other left, right and centre at the moment. Massively disrespecting police officers is another thing. Look, have parents completely lost control of their children? We've had conversations already today on GB News about, well, what do you do? Do you put them all in young offenders institutes? Do you fine the parents? Do you send the parents to prison? Well, I'm just wondering, actually, whether or not is it ever OK to smack your kids to teach them discipline? I'm delighted to be joined now by behavioural and media psychologist. It's the wonderful Jo Hemmings. Jo, thank you very, very much. I'm going to front up to this immediately and just say, I don't have any kids. But is it ever OK? Is it ever OK to smack your kids to teach them discipline? Does it have any effect?
Hello, Patrick. Look, I'm not in favour of smacking. I am only if they're in imminent danger. So kids sticking their fingers in sockets or going near water with some sort of electricity. Yes, you've got to smack a child to immediately remove them from that danger. No, these are sort of teenagers. There's this group, mob, anarchic mentality. So if you're asking me, have parents forgotten about disciplining their children? Now, discipline is a bit of a dirty word these days, but it's incredibly important. Can't forget it. So each and one of those children, of that 200 mob, has a parent or a guardian that needs to take some responsibility for what they're doing and where they are. And if they find out they're part of that group, then there ought to be...
I just wonder with that, Jo, though. Yeah, I just wonder with that, though, Jo, they were there in the school uniform. Their faces, not a lot of the faces were covered. You, presumably, unless you're especially thick as one of those children, know that there's a relatively good chance that that video is going to end up getting back to your mum or dad. OK? The implication I took from that is that they didn't really care. I just wonder if it just means that kids aren't afraid of their parents anymore, and whether or not a little bit of physical discipline every now and again does bring back that, I would argue, maybe quite healthy fear from time to time.
No, I'm not in favour of physical discipline, but I am, especially at that age, because I think it's kind of pointless. But I do think kids have gone wild. I do think parents need to discipline them. Look, we've had so many stories in the news lately. Kids are 5 years old, going to school, still in nappies. What were those parents doing during COVID? Yeah. Clearly not going anywhere near potty training. 1 in 5 teachers report kids have hit them in the last couple of years. There is definitely a run of really lousy behaviour going on that parents have to be accountable for in some way.
But what do we do about it? That's astonishing, isn't it? What was it? 1 in 5 teachers have been hit by a pupil?
Yes.
Look, I don't know about when you were at school. I never saw anything like that at all. No. I think that's the kind of thing that might have made the headlines a while ago as a one-off, let alone now with the fact that it's 1 in 5 kids. What can we do about that? Because there is a discipline issue here. They don't fear the police. They don't fear security guards. They obviously don't fear teachers, and they obviously don't fear their parents. How do we get better at this without physical action?
Look, there is no point in smacking or hitting. In fact, it's against the law. A 13, 14, 15-year-old. It's about respect. It's about getting to recognise boundaries. Look, when they're in a group like this and they're all anarchic, it's like Lord of the Flies, they're going crazy, it's very different to an individual stabbing another one on a train. Let's not conflate some of these behaviours, but that particular group behaviour today, they want to be seen. That's part of the whole social media roundabout of gathering them together. They want to be seen on screen. It's disrespectful. It's offensive, and parents have to teach their children the old-fashioned matter of respect. And I sort of think that's gone out of the window a bit, and it does come down to the parents. It comes down to the relationships they have with their children and giving them good manners, decency. These are all old-fashioned words, but they're incredibly important.
Something else that might be a bit old-fashioned now, and by the way, I'm not casting aspersions whatsoever on mothers here. I'm too afraid of my own mother to have done that for a start. But fatherless homes. Is there an issue there, do you think? The breakdown of the nuclear family, we see a lot more divorces as well. That doesn't always mean the father's absent, of course. But I just wonder, is this an issue now? Do kids do better if their dad's around?
Look, I think one good parent is better than two lousy parents, that aren't getting on. It's tough at the moment. There's a cost of living crisis. People have to go to work. They leave their kids in various sorts of care, or their after-school clubs. They can't do it. They're latchkey kids. Remember those? Come home, feed yourself, your tea's there. I mean, when kids don't have the boundaries, they are going to go a bit wild. I mean, it's rough times at the moment, and I hope it's a bit of a hangover from COVID. It's a bit of a cost of living crisis, a bit of a parenting forgetting how to do stuff because they wouldn't have done it in their day. There's a combination of factors that actually need to be addressed.
Do those kids, like the ones we saw in that video, I don't know if we might be able to bring that up again at some point, like the ones we saw in that video and others like them and the ones that are going around firing fireworks at police officers, whatever they do they grow up to be terrible adults as well?
Look, not necessarily. This is a big group mentality. You take each of those kids individually, and I can assure you at least 50 or 60% will be pretty appalled at what they've done, but they're in a group, and that sort of groupthink mentality, that anarchy, that chaos they cause, they don't take accountability individually because they're in a big group doing it, and that's actually quite, a frightening thing. But again, parents have to take those kids they recognise, their own children, from that video. Where were you? Were you there? I recognised you. It's not a feather in your cap. We need to talk about this.
And just very finally, Jo, just to reiterate, I mean, from your experience, I suppose, in this field as a behavioural psychologist, there is no evidence that you think that children who are, I'm not talking about abused at the home here at all, I'm talking about the kind of, smack that might have been dished out a bit more regularly in the past. You don't think there's any evidence between that happening with younger children and them being more disciplined?
No, I know you'd like me to say that there is.
I'm intrigued because this is the point. If you think that the answer to that is no, then that's the answer, and that puts this to bed.
To suggest the opposite, that if they're smacked, if they're hit, they think it's okay to do it to other people. So actually the evidence goes against physical punishment in that way, certainly at that age, unless they are literally toddlers playing with something or about to do something incredibly dangerous like running to the road. That is the only time.
Yeah, Jo, look, really interesting stuff, and thank you very, very much for that, because I think that has been one of the big questions. I've been glued to the GBNews inbox today, because I was covering the show earlier on, and there was a load of comments earlier on about, these kids need a good smack and stuff, and I was thinking, well, actually, does it make a difference? But Jo, thank you very, very much. It's Jo Hemmings there, who is behavioural and media psychologist.